Welcome to the another edition of the Natty News podcast. Riding solo today. James and Leroy couldn't make it, but today we've got on a good friend of mine, Mike Pucci, who we've known each other for a handful of years now at this point. Got to actually compete together this year at Mr. America. Both had our seasons this year. So, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself to the people? Kind of give
Hey,
yourself a little background. I know about you, but
hey. So yeah, my name is Michael Pucci. If typically people call me Pucci if they know me, just because I guess Mike is like common or something. But yeah, so I started competing in 2009 in natural bodybuilding, and kind of the way that I got into it was when I was younger. It was always something that I kind of wanted to do, but I never really had the time or the money to do it. So, I went through college, and then after I graduated college, I'd always kind of worked out. I competed in weightlifting in high school, and that kind of, got the bug into lifting. And
you did
uh,
cheerleading in college too, correct?
yeah. Actually, I started in high school, and then I cheered in college. I cheered at UCF, and I was actually on the team that won the national championship in 2007. So that was a really good experience, and that kind of helped kind of fuel me getting into that competitive mindset.
For sure, for
Because
sure.
just competing, we compete once a year basically, and you do a lot of training. You're training like almost 6-7 days a week, all for this one time where you're on the mat for like 2.5 minutes, and you basically just have one shot to get it right. So that kind of really helped with my competitive mindset.
It
So then
translates a little bit to bodybuilding because I mean, you diet and you train and then you don't get that much time on stage and you know,
yeah, when you think about it, it really does, because everything, your prepping, your routine, your performance, there's a lot of aspects that go into it, and then you have this short period of time to kind of show off everything that you've learned and done, and you really only get one time to get it right. And yeah, I mean, there really is a lot of correlations with the bodybuilding, because typically you train for years at a time, and then you have basically, you have your peak week where you're making your final touches, and then you have your stage time. And a lot of times, maybe sometimes it's a handful of minutes, kind of depending on the organization that you compete in. Sometimes, it's 20-30 minutes at max, but basically you spend hundreds of hours preparing for this short period. And I think, yeah, that definitely plays plays a big role into kind of what got me started, and just having that competitive edge. But then yeah, so I started. So then I graduated in 2009 from UCF. Kind of gives you a bit of idea of how old I am. And then I had a friend that I used to cheer with, and her dad actually was. Her dad competed in natural bodybuilding. He was actually Mr. America 1981,
oh
and
shit.
yeah. So it was pretty cool. I actually didn't know that. She told me the week of the show. She's like, yeah, by the way, my dad was Mr. America 1981. So that was pretty cool. And she was like, hey, I'm going to do this natural bodybuilding show. You should do it with me. It's in 12 weeks. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it, with a little bit of convincing. So we did this hardcore. This was my first ever prep. It was like a 12-week prep. And it was definitely night and day contrast from how I prep now. It was like 6 meals a day, super strict, only like a handful of different food groups. There was no bit of flexible dieting at all. It was like, you had your 6 meals, and you're not deviating from that. There's no cheat days, no cheat meals. And it was a good show. It was God, I can't even remember. It was in Orlando. I think it was Nicole Week's show, one that she put
Mm-hmm.
on. And I actually, so it was my first show. So I did novice, and then I won my class, and then I won the overall novice. So I thought I was pretty good. And then I actually competed in the open in that class as well. And I think I got like last or second to last or something like that. I didn't even place. But yeah, that kind of lit the bug in me, and I've been hooked ever since.
Cool, cool. And how many competitive seasons have you had then so far?
Let's see. So I did 2009, and then I did 2011, and then 12. And then after that, that's when I kind of started going to every 3 years, just because I have such a long background in training. So I mean, at this point, so I started when I was 13. So I've been training for about 22 years. So once you get to that point, the gains that you're making every year diminish significantly. And so I started in 2012. I started competing every 3 years, and that's just something that really fits well with my lifestyle, because A, I love to eat, and B, it takes that much longer, especially when you're natural, just to gain any significant muscle mass. And so that way I have a full 2+ years in a surplus in between competing, and by the time it gets around, I'm usually kind of sick of eating, and I'm like, oh, it's nice to actually eat a little bit less.
Yeah. I think it's important that you point out, like, you have 3 years between seasons, but the amount of time in a surplus is 2+. It's not 3,
Yeah.
And I think we talked about this. We kind of agree, like, on a similar sort of schedule. I like about every 3 years, I think, is about the sweet spot. But you won. So you said 2011, 2012, and then did you compete in 2015 again?
Yeah. So actually,
You won your pro
2012.
card that year, right? I
Yeah.
remember.
So 2012, that's kind of the year that lit the fire, because that year there were 3 different occasions where I placed second, and the guy that
Damn.
beat me ended up winning the overall and winning his pro card. So then, just having that happen 3 times in a row, I was like, man, there's that really lit the fire. So then I came back in 2015, and that's when I won multiple shows, multiple overalls, and that's when I got my pro card in a couple different organizations. I think the first one was that was back when they still had the IFPA. So that was actually the first pro card that I won, I believe. And then I won another show and went pro in AMBF. And then I believe there was one other organization. But so that was really kind of the year where I was first able to kind of put everything together and win a couple overalls and go take it from being an amateur to a pro. And then I competed my first pro season in 2018.
Okay, so you didn't do any pro shows in 2015 then? You just did
No,
all the
I
amateur
don't. No,
shows?
I think. Yeah, the first pro shows that I did were in 2018.
Did you think about doing pro shows? Because I know that's something that people talk about. Should I do a pro show right away, or
Yeah, I don't think I did. I don't. I think that I was good enough to turn pro, but I didn't feel really at the time that I was good enough to kind of compete at that next level. I saw some of the guys who were competing and winning, and I just felt like I wasn't quite lean enough, and I just needed to get just a little bit more size and kind of work on a few weaknesses. I had to anytime I diet down, I typically will diet for about 9 months, and then so I feel like we're just where I was at that point. I wasn't good enough, in my opinion, just to kind of compete at that next level to where it would have a big of an impact, and to where I had a chance at actually winning. Because my mentality is I don't want to go to a show just to compete. Like, I feel like I can be one of those top guys. So if I'm going to a show, like, I want to win. And then so that everyone has their own mentalities, but I compete to win, and I feel like if I bring my best, it's going to be hard to beat me. So I just didn't feel like I was at that point in my career at that point.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I've taken a little bit of a different approach. I mean, like, I competed this year, my first pro season, but I did not have any expectations of winning any of my shows. But I also jumped into big shows, deep water, right away. I basically just wanted to fit in, which was kind of a subjective thing, but I think I did that. But yeah. So talk about your season. I guess this year then, or actually talk about your debut pro season. I want to hear about that, actually, because I don't think we've
Yeah,
actually talked about that in depth.
yeah. So that was a good season. I had
That would be 2018, correct?
yeah, I
Yeah, because
had
we're on the same timeline.
yeah, a couple good shows that year. I think I did about 3 or 4 shows. The first show that I did was the NGA show. I believe the promoter was Earl Snyder. I remember. I forget where was that. It was it was actually in Pittsburgh.
That's right. You were in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember that was when I was back when I was with Fit Crunch, and I went to their factory there, and saw how they make all their bars. So that was a good time. And so my pro debut actually was that NGA show, and I won the overall on that one. So it was pretty good.
You started off with a bang, man.
Yeah. So I was super excited about that, and I had two shows after that, and then I ended with so I competed in the Yorton that year, and I got put in the tall class, which I probably shouldn't have been, because all the guys in there were like at least 4 inches or so taller than me and had like at least 25-30 pounds of muscle on me. And I mean, it's hard to compete even if you look good with guys that are just that much bigger than you. So I kind of not the best taste in my mouth from that show, but overall it was ran really well. I competed at the IPE Worlds that year, and that's what really turned me onto the IPE. Just really well ran show. I think that year I got 4th, and like all the people that placed ahead of me were like former world champions or masters champions. So I was like, I can't be mad at that. These guys are like world champions that are beating me.
That was the year you competed with Brandon. I think Ryan Doris competed that year too, right?
Yeah, Ryan Doris. Garino was in there.
Garino. Mm-hmm.
I think what's his name? They were, yeah. I can't remember. That was so long ago, and as you get older, your memory tends to fade a bit. but it was good. Yeah. I think Andy was there. He got like 2nd or 3rd in that show, and I think that was the year that he won.
And you worked with
Masters.
Cliff that year, if I remember correct.
Yeah. I worked with Cliff that year, and yeah, it was great. I really liked working with Cliff. Fantastic coach. The communication was really good. He taught me a lot of different methods as far as like training and dieting goes, and kind of what it takes kind of to get to that next level. So that was a really good experience. And yeah, so I mean, 2018 was good. I ended placing 4th in Worlds, and I feel like that really set me up and kind of gave me an idea of where I set overall, just like in the natural bodybuilding community with everyone that was currently competing.
Yeah, obviously you felt like you were in the mix, and not just felt like it, but you weren't, right there. So
Yeah.
it was going into your season this year. I know that your goal was to win a world title. And you competed in a lot of different shows, a lot of different organizations that are premier events. I think you pretty much exclusively picked all the premier events. So you you didn't take on any easy shows. Not that pro shows or any of them are necessarily super easy, but so you started with you opened your season with Mr. America, correct?
No, so that was
or
actually
did you
my
compete
show.
before that? That was your second show. Okay.
Yeah. So I did. So the timing of the first one was perfect. They had a PNBA pro show in Tampa, which is basically my backyard. So I did that one, and I think that one was maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before Mr. America, and I ended up winning that one. But it was a
That's
really
right.
tiny
That's
show.
right. You did. I remember seeing that. Yep. You did do that.
Yeah, it was super tiny show. I mean, there was only one other competitor, and then but I won that one. It was a good warm up. It was in my backyard, and that kind of helped me to get ready. With the peaking protocol that I was using at the time, and then which I ended up using for Mr. America. But then
I remember you rapid backloaded for that. I remember talking about that.
I did that
at
for
Mr. America.
Yeah, so I mean that's what I did in the first 2 shows, and it worked well. It worked okay. The rapid backload approach is something that does work really good for a lot of people. But for me, I found later a little bit of a different approach that I used for my last 3 shows that just worked a little bit better for me. I don't know if it was, it fit my body type a little bit more, but it made peak week a lot more enjoyable.
Did you do more of a linear load?
So what I did actually, very similarly, they have a paper that came out, and it was it's like a meta-analysis of the peak week for natural bodybuilding protocol. And then so basically it's with Chris Bearcat, I believe, was a part of it, along with a ton of other people. But basically you have like a 3-day period where it's kind of like your carb depletion, but you're also fat loading at the same time. And then you have 2 or 3 days of a carb load, and then where your fat's pretty low and your protein's a bit lower. And then actually the Friday before the show, you drop your carbs a little bit, and then you bring your fats up a little bit and your protein up a little bit, and then you make adjustments on on Saturday for the actual show day. And that approach just really worked a lot better for me. It allowed a little bit more time for the carbs to get in my body and the glycogen to get in my muscle, and just looked a lot better, versus, where you're having 1,000 plus carbs on Friday. I feel like that just didn't give, all the glycogen enough time to kind of get into my
assimilate.
muscle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so many different approaches with things, and
Oh yeah.
it does seem very individual on a case by case basis what works. But I have never tried the rapid backload, but use sort of a similar approach to what you had. Didn't deplete on every peak for me, but did on a couple of them at least. So but yeah, so you did that show, you did Mr. America, and then obviously multiple organizations, USBF. You did USBF, their premiere show, which is the US Nationals or US what is that? What
yeah, I think United States Championships.
United States Championship, that's it.
Yeah, so I did so PMBA was the first show that I did. Mr. America, ended up placing 6th in that, which, obviously, if I'm being honest, I feel like I definitely didn't accomplish what my goal was, this competitive season. I wanted, obviously, to be a world champion. And it just wasn't in the cards. That I wasn't quite there. I had high expectations. I've been doing it for a while. I kind of thought I was in a good spot to maybe potentially make a run for it. And I feel like overall I climbed up the ladder. But I'm just
Mr. America was a deep show, man.
Yeah. There was,
I didn't know what it was gonna be like coming in. It was really deep.
Yeah, the competition there was great. And a lot of times, shows like that, there's always going to be like 1 or 2 guys that come out of the woodworks, that you don't even have any idea who they are, and they just come in and look phenomenal. And that's how it was. I mean, the competition there was great. The format of the show was really well ran.
The top 7 or 8, man, it was like, holy hell, these.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was a fun time. And the cool thing about this season was a lot of the shows had a lot of the same guys that I was competing at. Or a lot of the shows that I was competing at had a lot of the same guys that were in there. So towards the tail end of the season, I got to kind of get a little bit of retribution. Beating some of the guys who had beaten me previously. So that always feels good. As you can improve, throughout your competitive season. But yeah, so Mr. America, I got 6th. Then after that, I did IPE Worlds, which they had some freaks there.
What did Eddie look like in person? So we talked with Eddie on here, and we've become sort of friends on social media as well. He's a cool dude.
We competed in a few shows together. Eddie, man, he's great. He's so young. He's going to be a fantastic competitor. He already is. The potential that kid has, is unlimited. But yeah, seeing him in person, his shoulders and traps are just like little mini towers. I was like, man, let me get a little bit of those traps. But no, he's a great guy. He actually brought, he gave me a one of those chip peanut butter cups at IPE Worlds that I saw him posting. And but yeah, a great guy. It was a great show. We got some pictures. We took some pictures together at that show. But that show was stacked. You had Bada came in, and he ended up winning the overall. Just fantastic physique. He won.
Won Worlds. WNBF Worlds.
WNBF
Yeah.
Worlds. So he came in this year and crushed it. But he's one of those guys that he's been in the game for so long. He just always looks good. So there was really no argument there with him placing getting the top call. And then I had I got fifth at IP Worlds, and I competed in USBF, and I ended up getting I got second in the short class, and then I ended up getting third overall because they took the top three from short and tall, and we all competed in the overall. And I got third in the overall. The guy that beat me in the short class, Greg, he ended up winning the whole show. And then I think DK, he got first in the tall class. He ended up placing second in that show. But that show was a really fun show.
I was going to ask you, what was your experience like with USBF? Because they're sort of a quote unquote newer organization, a little smaller, but I've been impressed. We actually talked with the president of the organization on here, I don't even know, a few months ago, but I've been really impressed. I've heard good things, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, that was probably one of the funnest shows that I had. Just like from when we first checked in, the check-in process, the drug testing that they did, they had like a little red carpet set up where they were doing interviews. They had a good little goodie bag, and just the format of the show was good. The backstage area was good. They had a ton of space in a couple of different areas, and they had all of the goodies backstage. Like they had a ton of like little cupcakes and caramel apple pie things and fudge pieces, and just like a ton of different people I felt like made all the desserts, and they had them out for the competitors.
You've got such a sweet tooth, man. Yeah, I feel like you could just go without. You could just slide away all the pizza and the burgers, and you would just go straight for the.
I really I love me some pizza, but I've never really been like a big burger guy. But the sweets, man, that's definitely my one of my weaknesses. But that show was a really good experience. The way that it was ran.
It seemed to do things professionally. That's I've gathered.
Yeah. And the area, man, it was in Burnsville, Minnesota, and it was really exciting. I've never been out there. And you think about Minnesota, there's not a ton out there, but just a really beautiful area. The time of the year, the weather was perfect. It's like we were 10 minutes from Mall of America, and that was the first time that I had been to a Mall of America. And there's just so many things to do there. You can literally spend just days in the mall, just going doing the different activities. It's like it's unbelievable. They have like arcade area, they have go-kart racing inside of the mall, like movie theater, bowling alley. So overall that was a really good trip. And then after that,
awesome. I think I'm gonna probably have to mix in the USBF in my next season. I think that should be something that I do. Another question is, you did a lot of this travel and stuff solo, correct?
Yeah. So the first
like jumping it like with that, like I'm sure that there's some listeners and people that want to do these things and are doing them solo. Like, what do you have any sort of? And I've done most of my stuff solo as well, so I'm not criticizing at all. Like, do you have any sort of recommendations about how to go about doing these things solo, connecting with people there, or like,
yeah, definitely.
Just something that came to mind.
Yeah, if you can doing it. So the first 3 shows that I did were solo, and then I convinced a buddy of mine to go with me on the last 2 shows. And if you have like a friend or a significant other, it definitely makes life easy. But if you're doing it by yourself, it's definitely doable. What I would do, so for IPE Worlds, I did that show by myself, and it just make sure you get all your pre-planning, like get the hotel set, get your car set, get your flight set and everything. Think about all the food that you're going to need. The days kind of leading up. I typically like to travel on Thursdays, early Thursday, so that way I get there. I have Thursday. I usually will go to a sauna whenever I travel, just because typically flying does make you get a little bit of water retention. So I'll go to the sauna on Thursday and then
Sweat a little and relax then.
Oh yeah, just relax, get everything settled.
Where'd you pick up that trick from, or you just kind of decided to do it on your own, or?
I kind of decided on my own, just because I know from the past, like you get some water when you travel. Just like I don't know if it's the change in altitude or whatnot, but you always land and you're just a little bit over. So I figured if I get there on Thursday, hit the sauna, that's going to take care of all that. I always keep my water intake up high. And then just gives you time to relax, because the last thing you want to do is be stressing last minute when you go into a show. So get there a little bit early, and then Friday you can do all your last minute shopping. You can make sure you have everything for show day. And then if I'm traveling by myself, I always just use the show tanning people. That makes life easier, because that way you don't have to worry about anything. Just try to get your tanning set up as late as you can on Friday night, so that way you can get all your stuff done during the day. And then they'll usually do it Friday night and Saturday morning. So then that way the tan is taken care of. Stay at the host hotel, because that's going to make life easier. A lot of times that's where they have the tanning at. So that way you're not having to do a lot of traveling and things like that. But I mean that's the biggest thing, is just having them take care of your tan, and then making sure you have everything, getting there a little bit early, hitting the sauna up to take care of any water retention from traveling. But I actually had my buddy Jason come with me on the last 2 shows, and that made the experience a lot better. Just
something to kind of calm your nerves and kind of keep you level. And
yeah, definitely having him there, and if I need anything, helping me out, helping me out with the tan, having someone to like go out to eat with and stuff like that after the show. You always will make friends at the show, and usually I'll go out with some people from the show as well. But it's just a lot better experience if you have someone there, like the day before, so that way you're not just hanging out in the hotel room by yourself. You have someone that's kind of relaxing with you, and taking care of any like last minute things if you need them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good thing if you can have someone there. But obviously not every show you can, and you have to travel for a lot of shows, so that can be a challenge. So I kind of cut you off there. So you also competed at the PNBA Natural Olympia too, correct? After that,
I did.
I debated doing that show. I ended up not.
So that was my last show that I did, and I had high expectations for the show. Leading up to it, I knew that I was going to be coming in at my best, because so the IPE Worlds, USBF, and Natural Olympia, they were back-to-back shows. They were all like 1 week apart. So it was the first time I had ever done that. And then so after the IPE Worlds, I ate just a little bit too much. Not like I didn't go crazy or anything, but I came back and I was probably like 2 pounds heavier than what I wanted to be. So then I got back down, and for the USBF show I looked my best, and then after that show I kept things a little bit tighter, because I knew that I was going into the last show. And going there, I got there early. I actually traveled on Wednesday super early. That way I had plenty of time to get settled in, because it was a little bit longer of a trip.
This is out in Vegas, for those who don't know. It's speaks for itself. Vegas.
And everything was fantastic, except for show day. The show, there's a lot of people competing, and there's a lot of international competitors. So we actually didn't get on stage until probably like around 6
PM.
p.m.
Holy heck, that's
which
late.
which is a little bit later than I'm used to. But I mean, everything had went well, as far as peaking goes, and I felt really good. Definitely the leanest and best that I had felt. But then we got on stage, and the way that they did it didn't really allow everyone to get a fair look. And if I'm being honest, I felt like I was overlooked. And I've had, at least a dozen people say the same thing to me, because, they had us all lined up on stage, and the only part of the stage that had good lighting was probably like the center third. And then there wasn't really enough people. There wasn't enough room on stage for everyone to be in a straight line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean, like, we barely fit on the stage. They had us do like one set of quarter turns, and then they kind of set us out to the two edges, and then they did their first call out. And I wasn't in that. And then they basically at that point, they only compared those guys in the first call out to each other. Like, they didn't have anyone that was in the second call out, which was I was in. Even give them a chance to stand next to some of the top guys. So
Yeah.
It was unfortunate. But I mean, it is a subjective sport, and I I can only take it with a grain of rice. But I definitely feel like that was one show where I should have done a lot better, as far as placing wise, because I think I ended up getting
But
8th.
you didn't break that first call out though, so that kind of just screwed you right out the gate then, correct?
Yeah, because I mean, like, even if you look at pictures, like, you see me in the second call out, and it's like you can tell I'm like night and day, ahead of the other people that I'm like standing next to.
Yeah, I mean, your placings in the prior shows, I mean, because you competed against a lot of the same guys, that kind of showed it. I noticed a similar thing at Mr. America that they didn't have the lighting issue. But that first call out, like, they just ran through like a few like relaxed shots, and then it was like break out into the thing, which I was kind of surprised that I was not expecting. I talked about this before, but I was not expecting to make it in the first call out. But I could definitely see some of those guys at that, like, that 7th. I don't know if did you talk to anyone that was around that like 7th to 9th?
Oh yeah.
Were some of people like a little like upset about that? I didn't hear anything, because I was really surprised at how quickly they ran that not the first call out, but like the first whatever you want to call it, where they decide who makes what call out. I thought they should have done more shots, more than just a few relaxed shots, and move some guys around a little bit. I know that they want to spend the most time with that first call out, but I mean, I think it's important to get those call outs right though too. So
and that's one of the things that I really liked about the USBF is how they split it up, because when you have a class with like 10 plus people, like it's going to be hard to judge that. So if the way the USBF did it, they had I think they split their classes up into like 6 people each, and then they have that class, and then the winners from that class go into battle the overall. And I think that's just a lot better format, because anytime you have 10 15 people on stage, it's going to be hard to look at all of them, unless you're doing like multiple call outs, and you're like not just calling out the first group and then the second group, like you're comparing some of the people in the second group to the first group, some of the people in the third group to the second group, and giving everyone a fair chance to stand next to someone who you think may be one of the top guys, and seeing how they look next to them. Because when you have so many people and you just do like like one call out, and then you just keep those people together, in my opinion, it doesn't give everyone a fair chance, and that's when you can have people that are overlooked, in certain situations.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's obviously it's difficult as a judge to kind of make those calls, but I think spending a little bit of time in that with that first group, and getting the way that you split it up is just, I think, I think it's important, and I think it's something that's, should
Yeah.
be done. Um,
Mm,
like I said, it didn't affect me at Mr. America because I wasn't expecting to, um, to get in that first call out, but
mm,
especially if you're on the bubble or, but like you said at Natural Olympia, like if you get tossed in bad lighting, I mean, that can make or break you compared to, you know, when you're being compared to other guys. So
mm.
that's unfortunate that you had that experience. And I know that there were others that expressed that, several others that I'm friends with and follow, that expressed that you probably should have had that you probably got overlooked.
Mm.
And that makes more sense now that I talking to you, that it wasn't just like you were you just weren't given a good look from the get-go, so that you
Mm.
just got tossed aside like right away, not just like you got mixed up and then your placing was off. It's like, you got thrown right into that second call out when you might not have deserved that second call out, and then you're SOL right out of the gate without getting a fair look from the start. So
Mm.
um, but that's a shame. But sometimes it's like, that's how these things go. It's subjective, and it's, the judges have to, you know, do their
Yeah.
thing, and they don't always make the best decisions, and but end of the day, they're the ones that make decisions. So
Yeah.
um,
So I mean, it is,
so I guess, how do you
I
handle that too? Because I'm sure, I
yeah. So
mean,
I mean,
you're not the only one that's been upset about a placing.
yeah, and it's one of those things. It's like, you know, I at the end of the day, uh, even if I had been in the first call out, I don't, I didn't have, the guys up there that got like first and second were just absolute beasts. But so I wouldn't have won, for example, but I think definitely I could have been top five,
Hmm.
in my mind, just if I would have got a fair look. But at the end of the day, it's on me to just be better and bring a package that as soon as I step on stage, it's just undeniable. Like not even not leaving anything to question. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now. Uh, Having dieted down, this was really a fantastic competition, or sorry, competitive season. I learned, better ways to diet down to retain more muscle mass. And I'm really excited about the progress that I had made compared to 2018. So, I think the lowest that I was in 2018 weight wise was 168.5. And the lowest that I was this season was 174.5. So that's a significant
That's a good amount
gain.
of tissue, man.
Yeah, and muscle mass. A lot more than I thought that it was going to be. And I was leaner. So not only was I bigger, but I was leaner. I got my body fat tested actually right before Natural Olympia. And I had the DEXA scan, and the total body fat was 4.8. And that's, the DEXA, the total, they include your brain, which typically in a lot of the other ones they don't. But so the subtotal, if you take that away, because your brain is mostly fat, my subtotal was 3.8. So that's like, any other standard test, that's what my body fat would be. So I was definitely really lean, but I just got to bring a better package overall. Just get bigger and get leaner. That's what the goal is for 2024.
Yeah, so actually it's a good segue into, yeah, what are your goals for 20, or goals and plans for 2024? I think you kind of touched on your goals. We obviously get
Yeah,
bigger, leaner, and you've got unfinished business, so to speak. But
yeah,
with that kind of, I'm curious what, obviously you haven't laid out your season, but um, you have specific titles in mind. So
mhm,
what organizations do you kind of intend to compete with again? Which shows do you plan to do again? Do you plan on
yeah,
changing what shows you did from this year to next
yeah.
season, or doing very similar?
Yeah, I definitely think very similar. The way that it worked out, all of my shows were in an 8-week period. So
Hmm.
which is, really ideal for a competitive bodybuilding season. So, from first to last 8 weeks, you're getting better each show. I did the back-to-back shows. That was actually the first time I ever did them. And I did 3 back-to-back. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about them initially, but I really liked them. It's easy as long as you don't, you go out to eat, you enjoy a little bit, but you don't do anything crazy. And then you get back right on the depletion the next day. And you're just like right back into peak week. So I really like doing that. And so I definitely, all the shows that I had a good experience with, definitely gonna hit up Mr. America, definitely hitting up IP Worlds and USBF National Championships, and then kind of depending on how those go, another organization that I've really been interested in competing in is the WMBF, and that's actually the only organization that I've never competed in because they don't accept my pro status as all of the other ones kind of reciprocate it. If you're a pro, you can compete as a pro, but with the WMBF, they have their rules, which I can respect. So you have to compete in one of their shows and win a pro, win the overall and become a pro. But what I found out is they have a couple shows to where you can compete as an amateur on Friday, and then if you win the overall and become pro, then you can compete in the pro version on the next day. And maybe it's Saturday and Sunday.
Sunday. That's how Monster Mash was. I competed at Monster Mash. It was similar. Okay. Saturday was the amateur show, and then Sunday was the pro show, and then they encouraged you to do the pro show. But
so that's something to where I definitely think I'm going to look into doing because their world show is huge, and it's very international, just like how the Natural Olympia PNBA show was. And so, there is a lot of top-notch competitors that compete there. So that may be something to where I added into the mix. But yeah, definitely Mr. America, it's a great experience there. IP World is always a really good show. I like the promoter, John. He's a great guy. And then, definitely USBF again, just with the experience that I had there. And then, maybe adding the WMBF in there and kind of seeing how I compare against some of those guys.
Sweet, man. I'm going to put you on the spot with a question. If you could pick one title to have of those, which would you pick?
Oh man, it's
great controversy here.
Well, I'm going to go with the Mr. America just because, with what we're trying to do, kind of to create the kind of like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, with all the organizations going there, I think, just with how it's starting now, and then, I can only imagine how big it's going to be by 2024. That's the one that I'm going to be gunning for. And, I got to get a little bit of retribution at, USBF when I actually, beat the Mr. America from that year in the overall. So, I definitely feel like, if I continue to make some progress and have a good off season that, I'll at least be competitive, to maybe get the chance to get that title.
Awesome. We've got the title of this. Leroy, the title of this is Mike Pucci, Mr. America 2024 ? That's the title of this podcast. But
I like it.
I think we've been talking a while. Usually like tries to cut us off, but it keeps us going. But any kind of last thoughts or last recommendations or advice for anyone that's listening, or anything else you want to cover?
The big thing is just find something that you can do long term. I'm a big proponent of flexible dieting, and when it comes to training, just making sure big things that I keep in mind are recovery. Getting sleep, 7 to 8 hours every night. That's like probably one of the biggest keys that people neglect. And getting your water intake in, making sure your protein is sufficient. And as far as training goes, keeping it heavy, but stay away from failure. You don't have to fail. They've done meta-analysis and show that it just impedes recovery, and you can make just as much progress, if not more. Stopping like a rep short of failure. With keeping good form. But that's the biggest thing. If you want to be in the game long term, Make sure your recovery is appropriate. And then, train with intensity. And something that I started a little bit later than I should have is keeping track of your workouts. So knowing how much you did each workout with each like weight and rep and set, just writing it down, because a lot of people say they can keep track in their head, but you never really can. You don't know if you did 12 reps with 75 pound dumbbells last week, or if you did 11, or things like that. So I mean, those are kind of
Man,
like
sometimes I forget, like right
skills.
after I did the set, like, wait, did I do 10 or
Yeah,
did I do 11?
yeah. So I mean, just keeping track, and in that way, what helps me with the off season is trying to set little mini PRs. Every time I go to the gym, whether it be like an extra rep or an extra set, or an extra 5 pounds, and that's what really keeps me going. While I have those 2 years where I'm not competing, and I'm not like specifically, have a show date in mind. But it's once you get into
It keeps you competitive. It keeps keeps goals in mind, and
yeah.
like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
keeps you pushing forward. Always striving for something better in some regard.
Oh yeah, because I mean that's what's going to keep you in the game, like having those little goals and being competitive, because you can't compete every year. And if you're competing every year, you're not making any progress. Unless you're taking some extra things. But it's being a natural bodybuilder, you have to take time off at least every other year, in my opinion, if you've been doing it for a long time. And I mean, you just go with the results of the people, the top guys. Like there's very few top guys that are competing every year, unless you're kind of at the tail end of your competitive season. Unless you're late 40s or 50s, then maybe you can, because there's just less progress that you're going to make. But then you look at guys like Jeff Alberts, and he's pushing up there in the age, and he's still making significant gains, and he's not competing every year. But that's one of the things what I love about natural bodybuilding is I feel like I'm just getting into my prime, and there's so much time that I have to kind of get to that next kind of like step on the ladder. And once I get up there, I'm going to stay up there for a while. So I'm just just putting in my time, putting in the work, and looking forward to getting to that next level.
Oh yeah, man. I hope to join you at the top here. So.
Oh, you'll be there, man. We'll hopefully we'll grace the stage next time together at a few shows as well.
We seem to align, so we
Yeah.
might be doing Mr. America again together, which would be cool.
That sounds good to me.
But that's all I've got. And then you want to plug the socials? Where can people find you?
Yeah, Instagram. It's Michael Pucci _. That's where I post a lot of my progress and a lot of my workouts and things like that. I'm an online coach with Unique Prep. You can go to teamuniqueprep.com if you're looking. I work with a lot of general population, just looking at getting better shape. And then I also do contest prep as well. I actually had a client of mine that he got 4th in the Masters at. He competed with me at a Natural Olympia, so that was pretty cool. And then I've worked with a handful of people. Apart from that, I would say generally I work with Gen Pop, but I also had a girl that won her WBFF Pro card this year. She looked fantastic. So you can hit me up there if you're interested in coaching or anything, or if you just have any questions about what I do in my contest prep, strategies that I've used in the past. I'm always willing to talk. I don't keep any secrets as far as what I'm doing. I feel like most of the information is out there anyways, and if I could help someone have a little bit of the easier time with the experience that I've put in, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Cool, man. We appreciate you coming on, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And you can find us on Instagram at Natty _News _Daily, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you, Mike,
Awesome,
for joining us. I appreciate it.
Man, it was great catching up. It's an honor to be on this show. Definitely appreciate you having me here. And we'll catch up soon. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Sounds good, man.